Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com. It's the weekend. It is the weekend, and that means it is the Saturday version of Today in Sports Betting. And, man, because it's Saturday, we don't do a show on Sunday. We ought to call this one It's This Weekend in Sports Betting. So we're going to talk a little bit about the stuff that's going on tomorrow. We already talked about the golf yesterday. What a compelling 30 minutes of radio that was. But we're going to, I don't know, what do we call this? Scott, what is this? Is this a radio podcast? It's a video. What are we doing here, Scott? It's Scott Reichel, everybody. My cohort, my equal partner up there in Long Island, New York. Scott, what do we call this show? What is this?
If you don't know what to call it, just call it media, and I feel like it covers all avenues. So
very nice.
A good spot.
This is our media that we're throwing out there today. It's good to have everybody here as always. And we've Scott and I have become week-long experts in NASCAR. So, yeah, you guys might be appreciating that. I would call myself an expert in NASCAR for what? It's got about 10 days now?
I know I used to be an expert in NASCAR back when I was on an elementary school back in the day. But ever since every other sport's been basically shut down, you started to have some soccer leagues start up again. German soccer's underway. Barcelona, Real Madrid, and the rest of La Liga got the green light for June 8th, so you should be seeing more soccer in that department as well. But in the meantime, NASCAR is kind of holding down the fort when it comes to domestic sports, especially for this weekend, as UFC ended up taking the week off before resuming next week, which we will cover at some point in the future. But, yeah, NASCAR is one of the only sports that are actually running on a regular basis, at least nowadays, and it gives us something to talk about. So,
yep. And who better to talk it with than one of the sons of the South? You know him, you love him. He's our resident expert on esports, good UFC guy as well. And what a shocker, living down there in Mississippi. He is also a NASCAR fan. You know him, you love him. He is the one and only Winning Willie. Willie, how are you, buddy? Happy Saturday.
What's going on, fellas? It's a pleasure to be back. It's the weekend.
It's the weekend, baby. After we're working hard all week long, and it's just time to kick back. Oh, no, wait a minute. Nobody's working hard all. I guess, you know what? That's not fair. A lot of people are working hard all weekend long. Just not a lot of people in the sports entertainment venue right now are working real hard during the week. We'd love to change that. You know, I used to complain about working 12, 14 hours a day. Wow, that seems like a good problem to have about now. Anyway, good to have you, Willie. I know you're down there in the great state of Mississippi. And we're going to take a look as they run what race they're running tomorrow, Willie?
Coca-Cola 600.
There you go. He actually, and he says it with two syllables at the beginning. It is the Coca-Cola, as opposed to a lot of people down there that I've heard in the South call it the Coca-Cola. But Willie, let me ask you: this is a true test of being in the South. Do you like Yoo-hoo?
I do not.
Okay, all right. We can hang out. He says Coca-Cola, and he doesn't like Yoo-hoo. Scott, you like Yoo-hoo?
It has its moments, but for the most part, not really.
Okay. Well, okay, so it's you I'm going to have to dump. Jesus.
It's one of the two. I mean,
Yoo-hoo, by the way, other than Jägermeister, worst thing to ever be put in a bottle and drunk by human beings. So that's just my opinion.
I'm curious what the people at Yoo-hoo did to you, because you sound a little bit traumatized or pissed off or something.
It's just awful. It's one of those things. I like soda. I like chocolate. Don't put them together. That's know? Fair. I like strawberries. I like lobster. Don't want to see strawberry. I blew it. I blew the joke. Okay, so anyway, let's.
Now I got to get rid of you. This is really going full circle.
All right, let's take a look here, gentlemen. This is going to be the first race that they're actually going to do some qualifying for. It is the Coca-Cola 600. It is the longest race on the NASCAR circuit. If I'm not mistaken, you guys certainly correct me if I'm wrong. I know you will. It is the longest race as far as just certainly an oval race in the world, not counting the the Dakar and all the off-roading stuff they do down there in Baja. But as far as just lining them up and send them in a track, this is the longest race that they have. Is that right, guys? I mean, there's no Le Mans, there's no Formula One, there's no IndyCar, there's nothing that runs 600 miles, is there?
Not that I could think of. As far as I know, I believe this is the longest track, I should say. I can't confirm about all the F1 races and all the stuff that go through Monaco and some of these other, cities. But for the most part, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the longest race. I always thought that was the claim to fame behind this.
Yeah, that's exactly – I've been – because this is how slow it's been. I've been, watching things on the history of this track and this race. And Humpy Wheeler, by the way, is the guy that built the Charlotte Motor Speedway there. 1.5 mile tri-oval. It was kind of the first real super speedway, what they called it back in the day. Of course, now we have 2.5 mile tracks down there in Daytona and Talladega and whatnot. So, but man, they get some speeds. That is a well-seasoned track. And when you watch a race here at Charlotte or Atlanta, it is hard to believe that racetrack is the same distance that like Texas, Chicago, Kansas City, all those new tracks where they just don't get the speeds. Willie, have you been to Charlotte? Have you seen a race there?
I have not. I have never been to a NASCAR race.
Never been to a NASCAR race? Oh man, it is unbelievable. What's that?
Not a Cup Series. I went to a Truck Series race when they were in Memphis before they closed the track down in Memphis. But
okay, yeah, that was I actually saw a truck race in Topeka one time on a road course, and that was
nice.
That was a lot of fun to watch. But there's nothing like I happened to be lucky enough to have some tickets the first couple of years that they opened the track here in Kansas City, and there is nothing like watching those in those days 43 cars come thundering down the straightaway to take the green flag. Highly recommended, even if you're not a gearhead, and which I am not ever. I've never been a gearhead, big racing guy, but I did enjoy that. And yeah, so anyway, so let's take a look at this race, guys, and it's going to be a little tough to handicap. We talked about that before the show because we don't know who's going to be. We don't know who's going to be on the starting grid, but that doesn't mean that they haven't put lines out. So let's take a look. Scott, looking right off the bat, do you want to just start with some straight bets? You just want to start with some money lines, and then we'll get into the matchups. Just kind of go from there. Who got your eye on for this one, Scotty?
Yeah. Well, once again, it's going to be pretty tricky, and I'm going to adjust my unit size accordingly because we don't really know exactly where any of the people we're going to be predicting are going to be starting the race. So if you end up taking somebody you think's going to win, who's roughly, I don't know, for example, 7-1, and then you find out afterward the starting 30th, you're not really going to feel too pleased. So, factor that in accordingly. But based on the race, there were a couple of people I wanted to look at, but it wasn't really anybody that was that shocking. The first name I wanted to look at was Martin Truex Jr., who was one of the favorites for this race. Kind of blew my mind when I realized how good he's been on this track historically, which makes perfect sense as to why he's currently listed on DraftKings having better odds of winning than Kevin Harvick, which is kind of shocking because Harvick's been the best racer in the circuit as we've gone through over the course of the season. But Truex Jr. has been phenomenal over the last couple of years in this track, and I think that there's a reason why he's currently that short of a favorite. He's actually the favorite to win the whole thing on Fox Bet if you look at plus 500, but he's available on DraftKings at plus 600, and that's probably where I'm going to be leaning for my first outright winner. So I'm going to start out with Martin Truex Jr. I can give out a couple of other ones, but I don't know if you want to just take turns here.
Yeah, let's take spin since you already stole my thunder with Martin Truex Jr. by letting you go first. I'll let Willie take a shot at your next pick. Willie, who else you like besides Martin, or do you like Martin Truex Jr. for starters?
Well, I do like Martin Truex Jr. just because he's drove really good at Charlotte in his career. Although he's not having the best of years. Granted, nobody's really just outside of Kevin Harvick been just extremely impressive this year. But looking up towards the top of the favorites, I kind of like Chase Elliott at plus 750 on DraftKings. He's been driving really well. He probably should have won Wednesday night if it wasn't for Kyle Busch spinning him out. But we'll leave that discussion for another day.
Busch brothers going to do what the Busch brothers do, man. That is
we talked about that when we recapped.
Yeah, not the first time that's happened for sure, Willie. Yeah, I agree. He had a good car. It looked like he was ready to setting up to make a run there, and that was a real shame. And on the plus side, Chase Elliott seemed to take it really well on Busch's next trip by the track there. He really expressed his pleasure by telling him that you sir, are number one. Indeed, number one.
He used his middle finger to say that, actually. I'm pretty
sure. He did. It must have been a glove issue or something where he couldn't get that.
I don't know, but, it happens. It's actually funny that you mentioned it, though, because Willie actually did steal my second pick as I was going to take Chase Elliott as well. Simply put, I feel like the odds, the betting markets are telling us a lot here about Elliott. I know that Elliott has been pretty good so far in the chase, in the series so far. I almost called it the chase series. It's a throwback and a half. But, yeah, Elliott, even though he got spun out last week, definitely had one of the best cars there. And I think that's considering the fact that he's basically the fourth favorite to win this race is pretty telling to me. And I think that the track conditions here actually suit his racing style pretty well. Elliott's currently at plus 750 on DraftKings. I think there's some value there as well. So my second pick was going to be Chase Elliott, and I'll let Scott give out his third favorite or whatever, and to try to get even, as maybe he can guess who the third person I'm thinking of is.
Well, I'm gonna take a spit on the crystal ball here. It is. I hate to be a homer or kind of make a stock play here, but it is just hard to bet against Kevin Harvick right now. He is having a heck of a season. He is leading the Cup standings, and I feel like you could do a lot worse than playing Kevin Harvick in this situation. I think he's a good race car driver, having a good year. He's had a couple of down years, but something appears to have really clicked for the 29 car. And is he still driving the 29 car? I don't even know.
No, he's Kevin Harvick. He's driving the 4 car.
That's right. He's driving so much changes.
He's in the ExxonMobil machine.
He hasn't won since 2014, but he does have 3 victories here at Charlotte. And as we talked about, being 600 miles, this is not only a test of your ability to test your stamina. These guys back in the day when they used to run this during the day, when it used to go, because they designed this race to go head to head with Indianapolis with the Indy 500. Used to run in the middle of the day right up against Indy. Drivers used to lose 20 pounds plus running this race. So, all these guys that say, they're not athletes, they're not in shape, go ahead and hop in a car, drive about 180 to 200 miles an hour for 600 miles, bumper to bumper. See how that goes for you, because I'm guessing, not going to go well. So I do like Harvick. I like the good driver. He's got experience there at this track, and he's good. He's running well this season in the 4 car. Sorry, guys. I can probably tell you everybody what their number used to be, but it should be a lot of fun to see this one. I've got I do like the Harvick, and we're going to see, kind of off topic. Speaking of car drivers, we're going to see that 3 car out there. In the anytime you see that 3 car, kind of tugs at the heart again. Austin Dillon's going to be driving the Coca-Cola number 3 there, the former Dale Earnhardt vehicle. So Scott, did I steal your thunder there? Were you going to go with Harvick?
You actually did not. One quick question though, since you do like Harvick. If you look at Fox Bet, Harvick is 8-1, but you can get him or Denny Hamlin winning at 5-1. So which would you prefer out of the 2?
Oh, I like that, Scott, because I'm looking at Bet Online, and I've got Kevin Harvick at plus 550.
Yeah, Harvick's at 8-1 on.
So yeah, you can throw in what you say, Truex?
No, you throw in Hamlin. And
you throw in Hamlin? Yeah, I do that. I do that all day long. Hamlin's listed at plus 1,000. I'm a fan of that one. I like that one quite a bit. Dude, now you can use Fox Bet there in where you are up there in Long Island.
It's available in Jersey. So if you just make the trip over the bridge, you can.
Okay, so it's actually legal. It's a real.
Yeah.
It's a. Do they have a bricks and mortar, or they just have the app there in New Jersey?
As far as I know, the bricks and mortar has not been officially created yet, or even if it was, it's not open because pretty much nothing's open at this point in my area. Right. But as far as I know, it is just the app. So potentially I could be incorrect about that, but I know that it is available for all people living in Jersey and maybe I think Philly as well. So it might be available in Pennsylvania as well. So you have some.
All right. Speaking of which, Willie, I know you guys have casinos down there in Mississippi. What's your reopening plan? Are they talking? I know they're talking about it. What is it looking like as far as getting?
Casinos are open.
You guys opened back up?
We opened back up yesterday, day before yesterday, one of the 2.
Oh, there you go.
No tables yet, but the tables will be soon. They're putting up some kind of plexiglass on the tables.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures about what they're going to do and everything like that. So it should be interesting to see.
You mean the poker tables in Florida with all the photos circling as they?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Well, I heard they can only do 6 max at tables, and how I believe some poker rooms are using a hand sanitizer bottle as the small blind chip, or the dealer chip. I mean. That's not a joke. I actually heard that.
So every time the button comes around to you, you have to sanitize your hands?
Something like that, but it's kind of like take and pass. So I guess that's what some things are doing. It's pretty interesting. But, you got to make the best of a bad situation. But,
Well,
yeah, talking about the third racer that I was thinking of, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't guess this, Scott, because I've been mentioning the same driver for the last 2 times, and he hasn't won, but he's been very close both times. It's going to be Eric Jones, and it's 25-1 every time. And I can't really complain about his performance last week because he finished in the top 5. I think he finished in the top 5. I know he was definitely in the top 5 for the majority of the race. He wasn't first before he clipped the wall with about 70 laps to go, and he looked poised for a potential win there. If you look at his numbers or statistics just based on finishing in the Coca-Cola 600, he's actually been really good. And I think at 25-1, it's a little bit too juicy for me to lay off. So for that reason, I'm going to take Eric Jones at 25-1, as I expect this line to probably close somewhere around 20-1, maybe 19-1. So for value, I'll take Eric Jones.
Well, the thing that worries me about Mr. Jones is the fact that he has run well as far as top 10s and top 20s go. Never finished higher than 7th, so he hasn't been able just to finish the deal, and I do worry about that in the 600. I do like Mr. Jones as well. He was one of my picks in the original Darlington race there last Sunday, and didn't do bad. He worked his way into the top 10. Fine race car driver.
Well, wouldn't you agree though that somebody who's had consistent top 10 finishes should be a lot lower than 25-1 anyway? Because based on how he's done on this track and how he's done recently, even though he hasn't exactly won a race or anything like that, he's still been competitive. And I feel like just based on his results in this track, shouldn't he be closer to, 16-1, 15-1, something like that?
Yeah, I would think that smells to me more like in the 12-15 range. Yeah, I agree. I think you're getting good value there. Eric, Willie, what do you think about Eric Jones? You think you like that? You like that pick as kind of a long shot? Well, not even kind of a long shot. 25-1. That's a serious long shot.
It's certainly odd to me that his odds are higher than Jimmy Johnson's. Granted, Jimmy has been very good on this track, but Jimmy's also well into his 40s by now and is not driving near the same. If you're looking at Eric Jones, I think there's some really good value at him for a top 10 finish at plus 110. Because he's been consistently in the top 10.
I do like that. I do like that quite a bit. Willie, you got another pick there that may stun and delight us?
I wanted to dip. I'm going to dip into the bag here. I was going to give Keselowski because I really do like Keselowski at 10-1. He's been driving great all year, but I'm going to really dip deep into the bag here with Kenseth at 40-1 or Newman at 80-1.
Wow. Okay. All right. 2 very experienced drivers run this race numerous times. I don't hate that. Go ahead and make your case, man.
Well, for one, that's great odds for 2 drivers, as you touched on, that are veterans. They've been here a million times, done it all. They're both Newman both drove very well coming back when in his return, and Kenseth in his first race back finished the 10th, 11th, somewhere around there.
He finished top 10, I believe. I had a matchup prop on that actually, but he finished top 10.
Yeah, so these guys are, they know how to win. Obviously, being long-time drivers like that, and 40-1 and 80-1, I feel like those odds are a little bit disrespectful for those 2 guys.
Okay, I don't hate that at all. I'm going to give you. You want to take a real spin on a long shot? How about 100-1 shot? Can I interest you in a guy that has won this race and is 100-1? Mr. Austin Dillon. He is the one that we talked about going to be driving that 3 car there. And he is right now, I've got him at Bet Online at 100-1. He won this race in 2017. He hasn't had a lot of great finishes. Other than that, he's got 1 top 10 finish. Besides that, he's got a 12th place finish. Everything else has been mid-teens. But, if I'm going to take a sprinkle on something, obviously not going to play him for a full unit, but I think a little quarter unit, half unit play on Austin Dillon is going to be one of my plays. All right, guys, I'll open it up for you both to just tear that apart.
Well, just so you know, on Fox Bet it is available at plus 12,500. So you actually could get even better odds on that for a long shot in comparison to the 10,000 that you got.
Nice.
So you can actually shop around. Truth is, it makes perfect sense in terms of value play to take somebody who has gotten to the winner's circle before. I'm really just not a fan of Austin Dillon. After all the hype that was surrounding him when he originally came up in the circuit, I feel like he's done next to nothing. And I agree that he has won this race over value. It could make sense. I just don't think he's that good of a driver. I think he's decent. I don't know. I think for the value it makes sense, but I'm just generally not a big fan of his in the racing.
Yeah, and it's certainly not hard to be scared off of his finishes in the last two races. He's finished 34th of the last two seasons, so it certainly explains why the odds are longer on him. I think you're getting a little value there, taking a spin on him. Willie, what do you think about that 3-car?
I mean, I'm with you. It could potentially be some value, but I also understand what Scott said there. Both of the Dillon brothers have been very inconsistent, to say the least. I think, for the most part, their family ties to Richard Childress is what's really gotten them this far. And I've just never really been huge on the Dillon brothers, either one of them, Austin or Ty.
Well, okay. Austin had more hype. I think Ty has been okay, considering the fact that he was mostly living in his brother's shadow during the course of his entire career, based on all the hype surrounding Austin. But yeah, I agree. I think that if you were at any point expecting them to be the next, I can't say Busch family, but you got two racers who are well-known and are usually competitive, they're definitely anything but that.
So let me ask you this: when you put him in the 3-car, when you put him in the 3-car as a rookie there in 2014, are you just setting him up for failure?
I tell you what, that's not going to help. I mean, it happens. If you really believe that the guy is going to be the next up-and-coming superstar, it's kind of the equivalent of when, of course, it's different circumstances. I'm not trying to, make light of what happened to Earnhardt Sr., but it's kind of like the equivalent of any NFL team who just decides to trade away their star quarterback because they have a new young guy in the wings who's just supposed to take over from there and everything's going to work out in the end. And then it turns out the replacement guy just is nowhere near the level that the original star was. I feel like that's kind of what's happened, where you give somebody the honor of being the next man up, so to speak.
Right.
But the bar was set so high with the previous one that it's almost impossible to live up to the expectations. And it's not even a matter of the expectations for Earnhardt Sr., because those expectations are basically impossible to live up to. Dillon just hasn't been that good.
He definitely, I think, yeah, I'll prefer to call him inconsistent, but yeah, he's at this point in his career.
He's left a lot to be desired. That's how.
Yeah, he really does, and it's almost like it's just kind of going with your with your analogy there, Scott. It's almost like the Patriots give Jarrett Stidham the number 12.
Yeah,
and yeah, that's Austin Dillon has just 2 victories over his NASCAR career. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's again, it's that's why they're called long shots. You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what though, depending on when the qualifying race is going to end and how much of a gap you might have in between, I would probably take the Dillon prop if he starts in the top 10. But anything but that, I am not going to plan on touching it.
Yeah, and it seems unlikely that he's going to start that high. I would put him somewhere on the grid. Probably in the mid-teens.
Yeah, I was going to say mid to high teens, probably
15 to 20, something like that. So, all right, that's you guys left a little meat on my bones there. You didn't tear me apart too bad with the Austin Dillon.
I can't roast you because it's plus 12,500. So
right.
You can't really go wrong. I mean, you could have made an argument last week for Ryan Preece at 500 to 1, and I still said it was a waste of money. You're basically burning money. And then Preece's engine blew out immediately. But at the end of the day, it is racing, and stranger things have happened. And if you get yourself a good price, you never know. All you have to do is avoid a couple big accidents here or there, and next thing you know, you're in the top of the field in contention.
Well, and a lot of times those guys get lucky on fuel strategy. They're able to milk it to the end. And, we talked the other day, Willie, we talked about Derek Cope winning the Daytona 500 back in whatever year that was, 94, somewhere in that neighborhood, where he just where he was able to milk that car coming around. And
His
it
only
was,
Cup Series win?
what's that?
Wasn't that Cope's only win in his
I think it
career
is. Yeah, I think that was his only Cup win.
in 30
So
something years?
yeah, it would be like if Dan Marino had won the Super Bowl his rookie season and then never got back there. And actually, that's not right. It would be like if Brad Johnson won the Super Bowl and never got back there. Or maybe it's similar to Brad Johnson's career, actually, winning the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. So, Scott, who else you got your eye on there? Nobody's really mentioned the elephant in the room yet, I don't think.
Well, there's one driver who's one of the favorites to win this race, and I'm personally scared of him because of what happened last week. And I feel like we're thinking about the same guy. It's
Absolutely.
Kyle Busch. It's Kyle Busch. And I originally thought about taking him to potentially win the race because he's done very well here. And I think everyone knows that experience plays a factor, and Kyle Busch is one of the most experienced drivers on tour at this point, and he's usually very good. However, I talked to you after recapping last week's race at Darlington about the incident that happened between him and Chase Elliott and some potential vigilante justice, which might be, showcasing itself in the future. And I'm a little bit concerned about taking Kyle Busch because of the fact that I'm a little bit concerned that somebody from Chase Elliott's team might spin him into the wall. And I don't really know if it's going to be this week or at some point in the future. But if Busch gets tapped on the back a little bit and gets spun out, let's say lap 70, would you really be surprised? Because I wouldn't. And I can't really bet on him if I feel like there might be a bounty on his back.
Yeah, that's if you made a list of the people that have a beef with the Bush brothers, you're not leaving many people off that list.
Yeah, so, but that's the question though. Do you think it's too early for them to try to get some payback, or do you think that it makes perfect sense because it's less than a week?
I think it's too early. I think NASCAR is going to really put the fear of God in these guys about any kind of retribution. I think with their ratings the way they are, and they've got kind of the chance to get the entire stage to themselves. I don't think they want any shenanigans on what will probably be the biggest race of the year for these guys outside of Daytona.
Isn't that concerning though in the back of your mind? I think that's definitely a thought.
It is. They're not going to be cutting him many breaks. I'll tell you that much. They're probably not going to. They're probably not going to be given much ground when Kyle Busch wants to slide in front of you. Willie, what do you think about that? Do you think there's going to be a little retribution? And you think if there is, do you think it'll be coming in this race?
I don't think so. I think in the end of the day, I think, tempers are going to be high when stuff like that happens. But I think after a course of time, it kind of wears off a little bit. I did see when they went into the rain delay Wednesday night with that Kyle's crew chief was sitting there talking with Gustafson, which is Chase Elliott's crew chief.
I think that was Kyle who was talking to Gustafson. I don't think it was the crew chief.
No, they were still in their cars when they were sitting on the wall.
Yeah, that was his crew chief. He was.
I thought that was Kyle. My bad.
And Gustafson was also interestingly enough, Chase's crew chief was once Kyle Busch's crew chief. So I don't think there's a ton of animosity there. I think once it was said and done, they talked about it and it was put on the table.
Well, I know Busch kind of talked about being a somewhat mentor figure for Elliott early on because apparently they've been racing together for a long period of time. So I don't think there's any personal long-term beef between the two of them. The question that you have, though, is that you lost out on potentially millions of dollars and a decent spot, for finishing for the standings purposes for Elliott. So I wouldn't be surprised if potentially the racing company or somebody like that might tell one of the inferior drivers of the group, yeah, you might want to do us a solid and spin Busch into turn 4. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a thing. Do I think it's too early? Yes. I think if you're going to see something like that, it would be at some point, I'd say 3 weeks from now, maybe, give or take. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the fact that you have to worry about another factor that he's going to have to deal with as opposed to any other racer, I think is kind of a red flag. So for that reason, I'm going to pass on Busch.
Willie, what do you think? You like Bush? I've got him at 475 and 500. What do you guys have the odds there? You anything better than that?
He's at 6-1 at DraftKings, but if I'm playing a Bush brother, I'm probably playing Kurt at 25-1.
Really? Tell us about that.
I've always liked Kurt more than Kyle. He definitely seems like an easier to get along with driver. He's not really out there wrecking people all the time.
The bar's been set pretty low on that one, but yeah, fair enough.
But if I'm playing a Bush brother, it's got to be Kurt there. I love to fade Kyle Busch any opportunity I get. I've never been a Kyle Busch fan. I don't like the driving style. I've never been a fan of him.
I'm old enough to remember when Kurt Busch was thought of as the jerk, and then Kyle came on the scene and went, "Oh, we apologize, Kurt. You're absolutely right. Your brother is a much bigger douchebag than you are." So, yeah, you've got him at 25-1. That's a fair play. He did win this race back in 2010, so it's been a minute, but he did have a good run. How did he end up Wednesday night, guys? I know he had a good run on Sunday.
I believe he finished 15th, I think. He was either 14th or 15th.
Towards the top.
Middle of the pack.
But, this is – and we haven't touched on it much, but this is an entirely different track. Even though it's just 0.12 miles longer, this is an entirely different kind of racing at Charlotte than it is at Darlington. You don't have your butt pucker up when you're 3 wide on the straightaway. You're going to see some side-by-side racing. You're going to see some speeds. I think – I'd have to check with Atlanta, but I think if it's not Atlanta, this is definitely the fastest mile and a half in the country. They do run some serious speeds there, so it's a different kind of racing. Now, do you think the fact that it's long, do you think it eliminates or at least takes away the chances of some of the up and comers, some of the kids? Your William Byrons, your Alex Bowmans, those kind of guys. Do you think that these guys are necessarily out of it right now? Because they haven't had great finishes there. Alex Bowman did finish 7th last year. He did run top 10, but William Byron he finished 9th last year. But do you think these guys are ready to take the I call them the virtual racers, basically? Do you think they're ready to take that next step?
Well,
it's funny you mentioned them, Scott, because I was actually going to tell you that William Byron and Alex Bowman were other 2 drivers that I was keeping my eye on just because of how well they've been driving this year.
Yeah, they and I've got Byron at 20-1, and I'm looking for Bowman. What do you guys have on them?
Bowman.
I got
Bowman's
Bowman
one of the favorites. He's up there. He's like plus 850s.
Yeah,
Bowman is 10-1 at DraftKings, and Byron is 22-1.
All right, very good. So, Willie, you like a sniff on both those guys?
I think it'd be worth a shot, especially Bowman. Byron's been real. Byron's definitely the behind Bowman in terms of production, but both of those guys have been driving pretty well this year, I will say.
Yeah, I think youth is going to be served at some point. Just not sure it happens tomorrow. We'll see. That's okay. All right. Not terrible picks. Scott, what else you got for us?
Well, I was actually potentially looking at Bowman because he has had decent results here lately. A couple top 10 finishes. I believe he finished 2nd here a couple of years ago. I think. I believe he was top 3. But at the end of the day, at that price for Bowman, 850 is not, or 1,000, just simply put, too low. I think that number should be somewhere around 1,300, 1,400, give or take. You can't really price him next to Kevin Harvick. That's the problem that I have with the current line for Bowman. As for Byron, I faded him before in one of the props with Kenseth just because of the fact that I think Byron is significantly better in virtual racing than he is in actual racing. I know that he's still solid in actual racing, but he still makes some beginner mistakes, and I feel like he will iron some of those out with more reps. But I don't really think this race at this stage in his career is too conducive for his success. So for that reason, I'm going to pass on Byron. For the actual just straight-up winners here, I know that Willie mentioned him briefly, but we didn't really go that far in depth on it. I like Keselowski at 10-1. I think Keselowski is a very solid racer. I think he had a serious shot at winning last week. Definitely was in the hunt before it got called early because of the rain and the weather. I still think Hamlin would have won anyway because I thought he had the best car late. But Keselowski's been really good here historically, and he's experienced, and you know that he's not afraid to go 3 wide and put the pedal to the metal. So when going gets tough, the tough gets going, and I think Keselowski's going to be. I think Keselowski's one of those drivers who drives with relatively no fear, and I think he will be willing to make the moves late that some other drivers won't, despite how risky they might be. And if I'm going to bet on a driver to win the thing, I need somebody who's not afraid of making moves, and I think Keselowski perfectly fits that. So Keselowski at 10-1 is also a pretty good look in my opinion.
Not a bad play for a past champion there at Charlotte, as he did win this race in 2013. Willie, what about Keselowski? You a fan?
Well, I think the biggest selling point for Keselowski is his crew chief. He has a very good crew chief who is very good at strategizing, as we saw Wednesday night when he stayed out when everybody else pitted, which eventually, lapped the entire field and made it to where when the caution came out, he could pit with ease because, the farthest he could go down was, 5th or 6th place.
Right.
That's something that's always impressed me about Keselowski. I used to not like Keselowski because he was kind of that, that young punk, so to speak, that his fearlessness would kind of get in the way. But Keselowski has really grown on me here lately, and I've been a big fan of his here the past couple of years. I think he's a really good driver.
Okay. Yeah, he has really rounded into a complete driver.
Well, he won a cup championship. So
I was going to say winning the championship, of course. All right. You guys got some matchups, Scott? You got some matchup props? What do you got for us as far as props go? Or anybody else, for starters, anybody else that catches your eye you guys want to talk before we get to the match?
For the sake of the outrights, no. Those are kind of all of them I'm looking at. I don't even know if I'm going to be playing all the drivers I just listed, but I definitely will be playing at least a couple of those. I guarantee you right now I'm playing Eric Jones at 25-1. I think that line's ridiculous. In terms of other drivers, Truex Jr. is one of those drivers that I really think is going to finish in the top 3. But at that price, I really don't know if I can take him. But I think he's going to do well.
Personally, I'd prefer to see what happens with qualifying. I would bet Jones right now. I don't think that price is going to get better.
Yeah.
But I would hold off on Truex. Maybe you get Truex finishes. Maybe he ends up starting 15th to 20th, and you get a little better price on him. Mm-hmm. And this is a racetrack. Unlike Darlington, where starting position doesn't have that big of an impact. If you're starting 25th to 30th, or even if you get moved to the back of the pack, I don't really care. 600 miles is a long way, plenty of opportunity to pass, and plenty of opportunity to work your way through the field for a.
Since we don't really know what the starting grid is, I would lay off on some of these. But if I had to play 3, for example, I would take Eric Jones at 25-1. I would take Keselowski at 10-1. And I would take Chase Elliott at plus 750. And those would be the 3 I'd roll with.
All right, good enough. Willie, what about your top 3?
Well, my top 3 would definitely be probably Keselowski and Denny Hamlin. Well, nobody knows that he's hard to not take at least a shot with.
Wait, so we agree on the first 2, but you have Hamlin in there?
Yes.
Okay. And Scott, you have a top 3?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to, I'm going to kind of be the chalky guy here. I'll take the top 3. I'll take Busch, Harvick, and Truex.
Wow, way to think outside the box on that one.
You know what? At the end of the day, I like it. I like a sniff on Jones. I like your Jones play. I don't hate the Austin Dillon there just for a value standpoint, but I think those are the 3 guys that I think have the best shot in this race. I think the odds makers have it right. Every once in a while, you got to go with the chalk, and I think the chalk is right here. Now, having said that, I'm probably going to wait. I'm probably going to wait till qualifying to see what happens. Now, I don't think we're going to get. I don't think those prices are going to get much worse. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. I don't see how any of those 3 are suddenly going to be plus 350, plus 400. I agree. I think this is pretty much where you're going to see them at.
Willie, did you see in the Xfinity race there on Thursday night that Kyle Busch was a minus 150 favorite to win a race? Can you believe that?
I didn't see the odds for that, but it wouldn't surprise me because he was by far the most experienced driver in the field. Although I didn't think he was going to win just because of how terrible he had been driving most of the weekend.
Good for Briscoe. Good for Briscoe.
Yeah.
Well by him.
He deserved it.
That was excellent to see. All right, so let's talk about some props here, since you gentlemen have made some really high quality picks, and I've just went down the chalk line. Let's talk about some. We have to do a little contest. We have to get a little. If we're going to do this throughout the season, we need to put something together there for giving ourselves some points and everything. So, I'm going to work on that through the week. Maybe next weekend we can talk about putting a little pride on the line here, a little something. So, Scott, tell us about some props you got hooked up for this race.
All right, so I'm gonna start with matchup props, then we can go into some miscellaneous stuff after. But I got 2 matchup props that I currently like. It's also tricky once again without knowing the starting position, but I feel like these 2 are worth mentioning. I'm one of them once again. I won it in the middle of last week when I took Eric Jones against Kurt Busch at plus 100, and I can get Eric Jones once again against Kurt Busch at minus 115. I know Kurt Busch has won this race in the past, as Willie talked about before. I just think Eric Jones is the better driver at this point, and Eric Jones has been a consistent top 10 guy in this race. And I think there's a better chance of Kurt Busch finishing outside the top 10 than Eric Jones. So I'll take Eric Jones beating Kurt Busch at minus 115.
Okay. Let me ask you, because I've got a 4-way matchup prop. How about a fatal 4-way with Ryan Blaney, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones, and Kurt Busch? Eric Jones catching 3 1/4. You like that?
For value, yes. I feel like Jimmy could potentially be a sleeper in this race, but I think that, of course, his best days are behind him. But he has actually had a very good car the last couple of weeks, so I think he could be a potential spoiler in that foursome. But I do agree that at 3 1/4, I think that's pretty solid value.
Okay. Just a quick aside, Willie, what do you think? Jimmy Johnson going to make a triumphant last season here, or was the Darlington success that he had there just kind of a one-off thing, and you think he's just going to be going back to being a middle of the pack, forgettable kind of guy?
Well, Charlotte historically has been one of his best tracks. So I'm looking at this prop right here. You got Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Blaney in a matchup, and Jimmy Johnson is laying minus 108 as opposed to minus 121 on Blaney, and I like Johnson in that matchup. Blaney has been fade material for me most of his career. And if there's a track that Johnson knows how to run on, it's Charlotte.
Yeah, I agree.
I like the play as well. That's
yeah. Boy, that's kind of you could fade his dad Dave, and you could fade Ryan as well. So that's kind of been a fade family there as far as the Blaneys go. Mm-hmm. Willie, what else you got for a matchup that you like?
And I'm looking at I've got Keselowski and Logano at minus 115 apiece. I actually cashed a Keselowski matchup. It's Wednesday night against Bowman, and I'm going to ride Keselowski again here. I don't like Logano. I don't think he's nearly as good of a driver as Brad. Granted, Keselowski does have good Logano does have good runs, but Keselowski's the much more solid driver there, and I don't think that should be even juice. So give me that 115 with Keselowski.
He does seem a little consistent. I think ever since Logano kind of burst on the scene, it seems as if he's maybe been a little overrated. Am I crazy on that, guys?
Well, didn't he just make sure he took over for the Tony Stewart Home Depot car, right? When he started
that was his first ride for Joe Gibbs for JGR.
Yes. So once again, we talked about that for Austin Dillon, but when you're giving somebody a signature car, you're suddenly going to have a ton of expectations. Now, Logano has done a lot more to fill some of those shoes than Austin Dillon has, but I always thought Logano has been a pretty good racer, but people think that he's on the verge of being the next guy, and I don't see that. So I agree with you, but I definitely think that he has had some success, and I'm not going to sell him short on that, but I don't think he's the next superstar.
And that's the thing. It makes it one of those things that makes me feel old. How I think Joey Logano is. What is he now? 26, 27 probably?
I remember when he first came into the league.
Right. Exactly. Was he 18, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they literally just gave him the Tony Stewart car, and I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? But, yeah.
He did all right. He does have a win there at Charlotte under his belt in 2015. So, I don't know. And like I said, I'm looking. I've got all the fatal 4-ways here, guys. I don't have any matchups. So, I would take a look. Oh, I'm trying to look something that I like here. I do like. I'll tell you what I do like. I can catch a. Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get chalky. I was going to say I've got some top 3 finishes here.
Oh, now you decided not to get chalky.
Well, I know.
Okay.
I just don't want to make it a boring show.
It's fine.
I'm looking at top 3 finishes there. How about I throw in Eric Jones there at 6-1 for a top 3? You guys okay with that?
Well, wouldn't you agree that if you think he's going to finish top 3, you should just take him to win the thing at 25-1?
You know what? I know we had this discussion the other day. Yeah, 25-1. That'd be a yeah. That's the math checks out there.
25-1 seems like a must play if you're just looking for value.
Look at that. I tried to make a non-chalky play and I'm ripped apart, man. What are you going to do?
It happens, man. I want you to start thinking a little bit outside the box, but we can work on that in the future. Anyway, I got one more matchup. I don't know how many more Willie has, but it's going to be one matchup between 2 underwhelming drivers. And it's going to be a battle of pretty much who can get 20th. And it's going to be a decent juice here, but I think it's worth it. It's a matchup between Ty Dillon and Ryan Preece. And I actually like Ty Dillon at -125. Simply put, Preece just isn't a good driver. And if you looked at his results this season, they are awful. And I don't even mean that in a mean way. I mean that in just a purely accurate way. Looking at Preece's season, he has 6 starts, has led 1 lap, and his finishing spots 37th, 30th, 18th, 20th, and 39th. And if you compare that to Ty Dillon, who hasn't been great, but he's finished 10th, 26th, 15th, 19th, and 19th. He tends to finish inside the top 20, and Preece is pretty much lucky if he finishes in the top 20. I'll lay the juice there. I'll take Dillon at -125. I just think he's the much better driver.
Yeah, Preece couldn't even lead the lap from the pole on Wednesday night.
That's another thing. You have to wonder of how much. Sorry to interrupt. You have to wonder how much these specific crews tear apart the cars or how much they keep intact from the previous race. They had to basically create a new engine for Preece because his engine exploded. And I feel like Dillon, even though he wasn't great last week, at least he didn't have to rip the car to shreds. So that might give him a little bit of – does that play a factor at all?
I don't think so because I think these guys are all going to be driving different cars.
It could be, but you never know. I think Preece has a better chance of crashing than Dillon does. So I'm going to lean to Dillon because he has better results. And Preece, whether he actually finishes the race or not, usually finishes outside the top 20. And I think Dillon can do a good job of sneaking into the mid to high teens. So I'll go to Dillon -125.
Let me extrapolate that on that a little bit because I got a fatal 4-way with Dillon, Preece, Michael McDowell, and John Hunter Nemechek. If you're going to play it that way, I'd go ahead and play Ty Dillon +240. With that group.
Out of those 4, I agree. But I'm assuming we're in agreement out of those 2, you'll probably take Dillon at -125.
I think that's a solid play. Willie, you want to make the case for Ryan Preece?
No, I do not. Preece is a bottom dweller. Ty Dillon is actually – he's consistent, if nothing. If you have to say something
mediocre.
He's consistent.
That's what he is.
He's consistently around a 20-something place finisher. If I'm playing that 4-way you just mentioned, though, I like John Hunter Nemechek in that 4-way.
You know, I keep hearing about him, but he just never seems to produce.
I was going to say
he's still a rookie, and he comes from the Nemechek family, which has had, 8 drivers in NASCAR by now?
Front row Joe, baby. Yeah, I agree.
What's the price on Nemechek on that 4-way? Just out of curiosity.
The price on Nemechek on that 4-way is +225. He's the favorite in that group, by the way.
Oh.
225.
I would have guessed Dillon was the favorite in that group.
Nope, 240 for Dillon, 250 for Preece, 275 for Michael McDowell. So,
are we all in agreement though that out of that matchup, Ty Dillon's pretty much the play at -125? I know the juice is there, but Preece is just.
Yeah, between Preece and Dillon, I like that play.
Could you imagine Preece with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. based on recent results? I don't think you should be putting him with Ty Dillon.
No, fair enough. Willie, you got some matchup props for us, or what do you got?
Yeah, I have 2 more I'm looking at. I see you got Matt Kenseth and Eric Almirola in one, and Kenseth is the favorite there at -121, but I like Kenseth there a ton.
Yeah,
Almirola is another one that's just been. I mean, when he has good runs now, he's right there at the front, but that's once every 50 races. On the other hand, Kenseth has been impressive to me for someone that hasn't raced in over a year, except for 1 or 2 races.
Yeah. He came back strong, and that was the Yeah, that's such a weird deal that he was able to just step right into that ride, and do well there with the 42 car, right?
Right, right. Taking over for Kyle Larson after all of that
Yeah.
that
Very,
debacle.
very unfortunate.
The
As a
other
side
matchup.
question,
Go ahead,
oh,
Scott.
I was just going to ask you, Willie, do you think Kyle Larson will be back running Cup anytime soon? Not this year. You think he'll ever run another Cup race?
I don't.
Probably so. Probably so. It probably won't be for another 3 or 4 years, but he is back racing. What, in the dirt tracks or one of the
Okay.
lower levels of NASCAR? So I mean, he could probably work his way back there. He was a good driver, and
Oh yeah, yeah. He was what, seventh in points before his unfortunate incident, which
having one of
you
the
know.
best years of his career.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no question. All right,
I think
all right. I just want to hit you up with that. Give me your other prop, buddy.
Got Tyler Reddick and Matt. God bless. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Dibin Tedo. Good Lord, I can't
perfect.
say his last name.
Perfect.
D Benedetto.
Yeah, give me Tyler Reddick in that matchup. -118.
Okay.
Tyler Reddick is I think he'll be a superstar in the future. Reddick he's impressed me in his short run here.
I like that one. I like that. Now that's an under. I like those last two for you guys. Very nice under the radar picks as far as the Tyler Reddick and that play goes. Tell us what you like about him. Tell us why you think he's an up and comer, Willie.
Well, he's been quietly consistent, I guess you could say. He's not he tends to run towards the front of the pack more often than not. While De Benedetto is a bottom feeder, if you will. You won't see him very much outside of the 30s.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Both of them, Tyler Reddick, able to just kind of drive around, keep his nose clean, and that's what a lot of this race comes. It comes down to patience for this race, man. You can't force the issue. It's going to be a long, 4-hour plus race, and you just have to have the ability to calm down. That's why one of the reasons I kind of tend to lean away from some of the young guys. Obviously they have the stamina. They're probably in better shape than, these guys in their 30s and 40s, but I'm just not sure they have the patience for this race. Am I crazy here with this one, guys?
No, that makes sense. When it comes to matchups, one of the things that you can at least somewhat control is taking the driver with the lower chance of flaming out by crashing. And I think if you do take a younger guy in one of these races, there is a chance that they might not fully grasp when they should be making their moves, how they should be playing some turns. They might get too aggressive on occasion, and that might cost them. So, and that's why it tied into my Dillon thing is I think Priest has a better chance of getting eliminated and not finishing the race. So I feel like that should play a factor, and that definitely affects the younger guys. So, no, I think you're onto something there. But I'm not going to immediately write off some of the guys by saying, oh, you're under the age of 40, so you don't have a shot at winning this race. You know what I mean?
No. I'm just saying when you're looking for angles, I think that's an angle that I would definitely keep an eye on. And if you look at the chalk, the only one that you've got really you've got Chase Bowman and you've got Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. But other than that, it's a pretty experienced field there in the top 10 as far as your chalk goes. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. You guys, it's going to be a weird Sunday without having them run the Indianapolis 500 in front of it. Even not being a massive motorsports fan, that was always a day that I set aside to watch the Indy 500 and then watch the Charlotte 600. We talked a little bit about it before the show. What I think is certainly an underappreciated feat in the world of sports is driving the double, doing 500 miles at Indy and 600 miles at Charlotte. 4 guys have attempted it. Only one has made every mile at each track, and that was Tony Stewart. He did it. Tony Stewart did it back in 2001, I believe. He ran the Memorial Day double there, which I think. Am I crazy on this one, Willie? Is that an incredible feat of stamina? Is that an incredible accomplishment?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, just being able to get from one track to another in time is impressive.
You got to know somebody with a jet. I think that's of course most of these guys have their own jets, or at least they have a pretty good timeshare on private jets and everything. So that's it's right up there with Phil Collins doing Live Aid in London and then flying and do it in Philadelphia, which I'm sure you guys know absolutely nothing about. But
I know about it.
Do you really?
I do.
How do you know about that? 1985.
I know some stuff about the Live Aid. I mean, people said it's one of the best concerts of all time. So
It was. It was. I sat and watched every minute of that concert. I started at, I want to say it started like at noon Central Time, and sat and watched it all the way through till the very end. It was I recorded it. I still have the VHS tapes that I recorded. My favorite, some of the I didn't get like Spandau Ballet on there, but the ones that I was really interested in seeing.
well, people always know about the Queen performance, which is regarded as one of the best performances of all time.
It was top notch, buddy. It was really Led Zeppelin reunited. It was the Who was there. It was basically a who's who of everybody. But Phil Collins did the double, where he played in London and then took a jet and flew to Philly to play the nightcap over there. So
yeah. One thing, by the way, I still have one more prop to get to. I don't know if any of you have anything else.
Let's not. We don't want to keep you from getting to that prop, buddy. What is it?
Well, so I said I was going to go through some miscellaneous stuff after the matchups, and there's one prop in particular that I do like. And you know that I took some of these last week. I took the top car brand, and I had two there. I had one with Kevin Harvick, and I had another one with Bowman. I lost the Chevy one, but I'm going to try to go back to the Chevy here. I like Chase Elliott being the top Chevy at plus 275. I think that line is just too high. I think Elliott should finish in the top 5. I think he's got a shot to win the race. And if you look at who he's competing with, I think Bowman's a dark horse candidate. I know he's plus 350, but he has had good results on this track. Jimmy Johnson could put in a good run here at plus 500, but I think he should end up fading down the stretch after a solid, I'd say, first 3 quarters. Elliott at plus 275, I think that line should be closer to plus 200. I'll take that to the bank.
Is that really the two best Chevy drivers right now on the Cup? Is Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman at the top?
According to odds, yes.
There's not a lot of people still driving Chevys. Most people have switched over to Toyota.
Yeah. So based on those top 3, I mean, I'm not going to include the Will Byrons and the Kurt Busches and everybody like that. I think Elliott at plus 275 is a steal. I think that should be somewhere around, especially with the people I just listed. Shouldn't that be sub 200? Potentially plus 175?
I'm surprised it's not a minus at that, honestly.
Plus 275 looks like a gift. So I'll that.
I think you're catching a heck of a price there. I agree. That's a good prop. Anything else in your prop bag, Scott? Have you emptied the bag?
For the most part, yeah. I thought about potentially taking Truex Jr. to be top Toyota at plus 175. I know Kyle Busch opened up a roughly plus 125. He's even bet all the way up to plus 175. I am a little bit concerned, though, because I do think Hamlin is a very consistent driver who's very tough to bet against. So you kind of have 3 heads in that race in comparison to the Chase Elliott one, which probably has about 2. And I think Elliott's the peak one there. I think Truex Jr. at plus 175 is potentially worth a look, but I think that line is a bit too low, so I'm going to pass on that. Same thing with Keselowski, plus 350 for top 4. He's going up against Harvick and Logano. A bit tough, but it's pretty much only a 3-horse race there. So if you want to look towards Keselowski at plus 350, you can. But I think the only play I'm going to play there is Elliott at plus 275.
Be the top bow tie. All right, very good. Willie, what else you got? You got anything else left in in Willie's bag of tricks?
Yeah, I've got 2 prop bets that kind of poke off the page at me. One is the manufacturer of winning car. I like the Toyota at plus 165, just because it's the three that Scott just mentioned there. You got Denny, Kyle, and Martin Truex. Which
you also have Jones, who we've been talking about all episode.
Right. So I mean, it's tough for me to see anybody but one of those winning this race, just because I mean there's so much of that towards the chalk. Then the other prop I'm looking at is the car number of race winner. This is more of a value play than anything. You got odd at plus 200 at DraftKings.
Okay.
Which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, just because I mean just two off the top of my head that are odd are Truex and Hamlin. Mm-hmm. 2 that should definitely be competing towards the top, and Chase Elliott also.
Yeah, that definitely makes some sense, and I can understand why the even is so heavily juiced, because you're getting the likes of Harvick and Keselowski and Kyle Busch and all these other guys. But I do agree. I think if you're looking at those Toyotas and you think Toyota should have a good run here, if a Toyota's going to win, it probably will be. I mean, Kyle Busch fits in there, but yeah, there are a decent amount of odd driver competitors here. who could easily get you a nice plus 200 return. So, yeah, I agree. I think there's some value there potentially.
Okay, fair enough. All right, very good. Anything else, Willie?
I believe that's all I have.
You got anything,
All right.
Scott, or are we pretty much just recapping everything?
No, I think that's probably. I think I don't have a ton of props. Not living in New Jersey or Mississippi, two places where they have, legalized sports betting. I don't have the wide swath of opportunity that you guys have there. So I like. I'll be looking forward to keeping an eye on these lines when they come out and seeing how much of those I can jump on myself when they actually put a few more prop bets up there on my own site. So no, I like I like all the props that you guys have. I think those are all solid. Anytime you're getting plus 200 on anything for an even or odd, it's got my attention. Willie, I got to admit. I think that probably a little better odds, a little truer odds would be somewhere in the plus 140, 150 range. So I do I do hope that we that I have that one available. I like that one, and I like the price on there at plus 200. Very good. All right, boys. Well, we did it. That's and this is going to be fun. This will be kind of be the first, I don't know, quote unquote, real race that we've had since COVID-19. As we do have the qualifying there at 2:00. It'll be interesting to see these cars run because they're not going to. There a lot of times in the past they've set up cars. You'll set up either a car to qualify or set up a car to run the race, but they're going to have them set up to run the race, and they're going to just have to see how they qualify in race setup. So that'll be kind of interesting to see, and it should be a lot of fun. I know I'll be watching, probably be taping the golf and watching the race. Scott, what are you going to be? I know you'll probably be playing one of the poker tournaments there on the afternoon. You're going to be sneaking some watching sports as well.
Potentially. We'll see. I've kind of been trying to branch around to some new sites on poker, so I'm trying to figure out some stuff. I like BetOnline's poker stuff for the events, but the event calendar ended, and I feel like their poker tournament schedule has slowed down a little bit. So I'm trying to branch out and trying to find some other stuff with a little bit more of a return. So we'll see. But for the most part, I'll be watching either NASCAR or golf or switching off in between. So that's what I'm going to be doing on Sunday.
And Willie, what's your Sunday look like?
Well, I'll probably be grilling something, but I'll definitely have the race on and be walking in and out.
Outstanding. What do we got on the grill, Willie? You know yet?
Who knows? I'll probably do some hamburgers, something of that sort.
Well, nice. Willie, I got an important question to ask you. With you being from the South, when it comes to NASCAR races, what's the best beer to be drinking during a NASCAR race?
Well, see, I don't venture away from Bud Light when I drink beer.
Okay.
Just because I'm not a big beer fan. I'm not a big drinker most of the time anyways, but Bud Light if I'm drinking beer.
Okay, respect. You got any thoughts on that, Scott?
You know what? My beer drinking days, I basically crammed all my beer drinking into about 20 years.
Okay.
So I'm not much of a drinker anymore. I'm going to have to fade Willie on the Bud Light, though. I got to tell you, when I do drink a beer, I do like to drink a good beer.
Ouch. Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
You didn't just say Bud Light. You just said when I like to drink beer, it's a good beer. Ouch.
I'm not.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, I'm not.
It's that easier than a Bud Light.
For starters, as you might have guessed by looking at me, I'm not going to drink a light beer. I'm just not. I'm not going to drink Bud Light. I'm not going to drink Miller Lite, Coors Light. No, none of that. I'm probably going to drink. We've got a great brewery here in Kansas City called Boulevard, and they make a nice unfiltered wheat that I like. So I'm probably going to go a little more, not quite top end, but I'm probably going to go a little more hoity-toity. Sorry, guys. Hate to let you
do you want to guess what beer I get when I go out? When I used to go out to bars and stuff.
Miller Lite. You're a Miller Lite.
Bud Light.
Huh?
Bud Light.
Bud Light.
I'm with Willie on this one.
Yeah, I figured in Wisconsin maybe you're a Miller guy.
No, I feel like Wisconsin wanted me to be a Miller guy, but it never really. Well, they also drink a lot of local stuff like Spotted Cow and some other stuff around there. But
right.
No, since I'll be playing Keselowski, I'll probably be sticking to the to Bud Light for me. I think that Busch Light's okay, but I go Bud Light for me.
You see, that's the thing. When I was Willie, I don't know how old you are, but Scott, I know you're the same age as my kid, and that's when I was that age. That's the kind of beer I was drinking. When I was in college, it was kegs of Busch. So I've had. That's the reason that I've kind of graduated, if you will. I've done my time with beers like that. They're fine. They serve a purpose. But you got to remember, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have 1 or 2 beers. I'm not going to drink to get drunk. I'm just going to drink because I enjoy it, how it tastes. So I'm going to tend to be something a little more interesting. So,
but it's a less calories, more filling. Haven't you heard that like 900 times in your life?
Don't care. I don't care about that.
It means nothing. You're drinking beer. If you're worried about the calories and whatever, drink some water.
Well, if I'm drinking 10 of them, it matters.
Yeah, correct. But when you hear less calories, more filling, just drink some water. I heard water is 0 calories if you're really worried about that.
For me, my drink, if I am going to drink and it's rare, it's going to be a Jack Daniel's neat.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, there you
get
go.
on board with that.
All right. I just don't mix it with Coke or something like that. Don't do it. I know you'll be tempted, but just don't. Just don't. Okay. All right. That's it. All right.
Coke Zero.
No. No. All right, boys. Well, thanks very much. This has been a blast. Scott, as always, appreciate it. And Willie, we will have you on. Man, it's really Willie time here in coronavirus time. It's all the sports that like you've been waiting your whole life for this, Willie. It's esports, it's UFC, it's NASCAR. It's Willie time to shine. So we will definitely have you on again going forward. I know we've got what we got, Scott. We got a UFC coming up a week from today, right?
Yes. So at some point we're gonna have Josh back on the show. I already spoke to him. He had some technical difficulties the first time around, but apparently everything else.
We got the big boss of UFC. That's right. We got the
yeah.
That's right.
We tried to have him on last week. He had some technical issues, so everything's been sorted out now apparently, and he will be back at some point next week. So
good. All right. Well, sorry, Willie. We tease you and then we take it away. So sorry, buddy. But we will have Willie on here again real soon as we have a number of sports.
We got some NASCAR coming up also, so we can keep penciling you in. It's fine.
Yeah. We got jack of all trades, so
we got you're the Swiss Army knife of betting. We've got Bristol next week. Is that right?
I believe so. Let me look at that.
Anybody know?
We have another race from Charlotte. I know there's 4 more races. I know you got a truck series, an Xfinity, and I want to say 1 more Cup series from Charlotte after this.
Next Sunday is at Bristol. So
I know there is
right. Another race in the middle of the week next week.
They're running Wednesday night at Charlotte again. So maybe we'll be talking to Willie here even sooner than we think. We'll maybe do that on Tuesday as well. So, all right, good times, guys. Always great information. Appreciate you being here, Willie and Scott. As always, thanks a lot. And thanks to every one of you for joining us. We appreciate you guys stopping by, watching our whatever we call this, our pod video, radio, TV extravaganza. So we appreciate you guys as well. We couldn't do it without you. Hang in there, folks. Starting to get some movement. And we didn't even talk about the NHL. The NHL has approved a plan to start playing again with the playoffs. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit on Monday. So let's just think maybe things are getting back to the new normal. And I hate to use that phrase, and it's certainly been overused, but maybe there will be some maybe we're going to have all 4 sports here before the year is over. We'll see what happens. But as always, we thank you guys for stopping by. And whenever sports happen, whenever they're coming, we'll be there to handicap it for you on Today in Sports Betting. Don't forget to stop by and check out winnersandwhiners.com and our sister site over there at statsalt.com. Still churning out a lot of great content each and every day on the sporting events going on and what is going on in general in the world of sports. So stop by and check out those as well. I am Scott Steen. He is Scott Reichel. For us, for Winning Willie, we appreciate it. As always, you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you back here bright-eyed, bushy-tailed on Monday. All right? Go win some bets, all right? You guys take care. Bye-bye.